What Velma could have learned from Puss in Boots? Well, it could have learned to not be a pile of Alright, that's all for today's video. Be sure to like, subscribe, let me know all your thoughts down below, and I'll catch you for the next one.
I'm kidding.
Oh, I forgot. This isn't even my intro anymore. This is my new intro. Ooh, lights even. What do you guys think? Woo! One of the best animated features in recent years versus one of the worst animated features. Maybe ever? But I generally strive to be a positive guy. So before we discuss the things that Velma did wrong and the lessons it can take from the ginger hit cat with a beard, I want to shout out all the positives and what I feel it got right. Firstly, the animation is really good. Okay, moving on to the lessons this show desperately needs to take. The opening musical number within Puss in Boots establishes our protagonist's desire only for himself and not a care in the world about how his actions affect others. It serves as our introduction to our flawed hero and the easily identifiable conflict to be addressed throughout the arc of his character. The writers do a fantastic job making you buy into Puss in Boots being his authentic self, never quite realizing how conceited he is up until this point. The scene in which he is visited by his 8 other lives and gets to view his arrogance himself for the first time is crafted in a way that asks the viewer to do the same. A moment in which it dawns on him how self-centered and oftentimes terrible he's been to those around him. But what the film does so brilliantly is it never once feels preachy or that it's talking at you. The story plays out naturally and deconstructs these characters, which makes for valuable lessons to be had in such an organic fashion. And the same remains true for the villains in the movie as well. We have 3 different archetypes of villains in this movie. Jack Horner, the classic evil for the sake of it type, mad at the world because his often forgotten nursery rhyme. Goldilocks, the redeemable, sympathetic one, a villain with a heart of... alright, I won't say it. And Death, the non-evil entity whose aim is to challenge our protagonist's values. Ultimately, Death leaves our hero alone after he's willing to accept the fact that he is satisfied with his one life and vows to make the most of it. Quick embarrassing side note. As a kid, I've always loved the bad guys in movies. I've always preferred their aesthetic, and oftentimes their introduction and actions are just so cool to watch. I'm not sure what that says about me. And it was always tough knowing that their fate was never going to be a good one. Because, you know, the good guys always win. And yet, there I was, still rooting for them. Yeah, I know, tough childhood. Those were my biggest worries growing up. But now, being an adult, at least physically, Death kind of brought back those vibes for me. What an outstanding villain. This rendition of the Big Bad Wolf was awesome to see on screen. Anyways, all of that to say, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish does a masterful job deconstructing its characters, even the villains, exploring new avenues with them while also respecting the lore and history of these characters. Unfortunately, Velma does the exact opposite. None of the characters feel like they are actually any of the characters from the Scooby-Doo lore, so I can't even say it deconstructs them. But what it does do is a fantastic job at making characters you despise beat you over the head with its messaging. The show constantly is talking down to the viewer, and it's crazy to think that there's more depth and emotional attachment to 3 bears with limited screen time than the entire gang of mystery solvers. Hell, there's more character development in this map than both episodes of Velma. Raunchy. I kinda hate that word. Puss in Boots tackles so many mature themes throughout its beautifully animated story. Mindy, if you're listening, you may have a stroke, because get this, it did it without being crude and raunchy. I know, it's unbelievable. Don't get me wrong, crude material can work brilliantly. I mean, look at the execution of The Boys, for example. I love that show. But Velma makes the mistake of replacing mature themes with crude content for the sake of crude content. One of my favorite aspects of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is that, sure, it's targeted for kids, but it always respects their intelligence. This is a film that has the ability to stick with them for life, I think. While at the same time, it allows for adults to immerse themselves within the story as well. The first scene that comes to mind is the panic attack Puss in Boots endures within the film. It's represented so well here. So much care put into actually making a relatable rendition of attacks anxiety can induce. The execution of the rapid heart rate thumping throughout the speakers, capped off with the touching moment of the little doggo resting his noggin on our hero, contrasted with the cheap, gimmicky feeling of the anxiety attack within Velma. Crazy to think that a cat having a panic attack following a scare from a giant wolf in a robe is more compelling and relatable than it is in a show that is targeted at adults. Such a wonderful message that our hero, that feels he can conquer anything, has this endless confidence, also has his moments like this. Also, the humor within Puss in Boots is far superior to the gags within Velma. This character, the fact that Jack Horner becomes evil because of his forgotten nursery rhyme, this scene,
This is stupid.
All I smell is bullshit.
the constant bleeping of curse words, this cuteness off, I found it all very comedic and heartfelt, and my theater, which was full of adults, was laughing throughout. Whereas Velma doesn't seem to have a handle on who its target audience is. Like a series rated 18+, has humor designed for middle schoolers?
He has no brain! I am now not dissing her. She has no brain.
Look, meta can work great. I mean, Community, The Office, Arrested Development, and other animations like Rick and Morty or Futurama are all examples of what I would say are at least somewhat successful in terms of being a meta show. But Velma tries way too hard to subvert expectations and gets so caught up in trying to be cheeky and capture that same Harley Quinn audience that it forgot to be a watchable show first. It literally opens up with a bunch of high schoolers in the shower, which already makes the viewer feel horribly awkward. But then somehow the scene gets worse, as the characters discuss things like cliched plot lines and storylines in an attempt for the audience to be like, ooh, it's talking about other shows and movies. That's so meta and great. But instead, you're caught up thinking, why are the 15-year-old Scooby-Doo characters naked and attempting to break the fourth wall right now? Much like how the show replaced mature themes with crude humor, it does the same here, where it makes the mistake of replacing clever writing with meta commentary. Sure, there's an overarching mystery in the show, but it feels like the series is more interested in making fun of TV storylines, rather than telling its actual own story. Meta humor can be funny, if used reasonably. However, the risk of using this kind of humor is that it comes at the cost of an interesting story arc, or an abundance of cynicism. The characters within Velma are all one note. There's not much development at all, and they seem to just be transportation devices used to get to the next forced meta joke. They took very specific character traits from the original, and blew them up in a way that loses what made these characters so memorable in the first place. As I was mentioning earlier, my theater was filled primarily with adults for Puss in Boots, which in all fairness, I was at the latest showing for the movie, but I think it still proves the fact that there's an adult audience for these types of flicks. And judging by critical and audience reception, the movie has been received greatly by all accounts. And nowhere in the flick is there forced meta humor within the animation. The show trusts that its audience will buy into this fairy tale world and never attempts to break the fourth wall to spread a message. As I said, meta humor can work greatly, but Puss in Boots goes to show that not every single thing needs to be meta now, which is a direction that too many properties seem to be heading. You would think this would go without saying, but here we are. When you're reinventing an extremely popular IP, you're bound to get many fans that don't agree with a specific vision or take on certain characters. That's to be expected and is going to happen every time. But what you cannot let happen is to make every character extremely unlikable. Velma is almost insufferable in her own HBO series. She is rude to every single character, believes her intelligence allows her to snarl condescending remarks at will, and is non-stop complaining throughout the entire show so far. She's the new version of this. I mean, look at this little compilation that took me about 5 minutes of surfing clips to put together.
I'm not just a waitress, I'm also
A basic bitch who doesn't even know how to use hashtags.
Like what? Why?
I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shows.
Narc. White girl with too much money. White girl with too much money.
You don't know.
Velma constantly belittles everyone in sight, and it just becomes insufferable as a viewer. Like, how can I despise a main character of a show this much? Also, my bad, Caillou. He didn't deserve to catch the smoke like that. To make matters worse, no one is likable. Like at all. This iteration of Fred is terrible, and I found it hard to watch. Daphne is a mean girl in the show, but somehow not as mean as the character we're supposed to connect to the most. Shaggy is so occupied being worried about becoming a beta male that he forgot to be Shaggy. Literally all of the characters are rude and mean to each other. Even what could have helped add some emotional beats to the show, in which Velma and her father's dynamic, as they struggle with the fact that Velma's mother has gone missing, even their dynamic ends up being a hostile and strangely mean-spirited one.
Dad, you can't just eat soggy fries from the takeout container. You have to crisp them in the oven first.
I mean, literally all of the characters hate each other. But then Daphne and Velma start swapping saliva for some reason. One of the best parts of Scooby-Doo is the gang's sense of family and friendship. They're supposed to love each other. Thankfully, The Last Wish shows us how characters are supposed to be handled. Our hero, as well as Kitty Softpaws, have a past filled with conflict and misunderstanding that leads to a moment where fondness for one another is definitely dampened, but the love and likability of the characters never goes away. The movie literally portrays Puss in Boots as a cynical and arrogant protagonist, yet he never crosses the line, becomes outright mean or insufferable in any way. Instead, the movie makes you want the flawed hero to become more self-aware and change for the better. The writing is clever enough to make the characters so likable, even when their actions aren't always the greatest. Take the doggo again. what could have been an obnoxious and annoying side character ends up being hilarious, lovable, and oftentimes the emotional heartbeat of the film. The subplot of Goldilocks was so well done that you genuinely start to care for that whole family. Jack Horner's addition is so clever and humorous, and the wolf is such a fascinating villain that is endlessly intriguing on screen. The dynamic when all of these characters begin to interact with each other during the climax of the film is so charming and entertaining because the characters were all so likable on screen. We're attached to them. When you contrast that with Velma, and the whole time you're just uncomfortable watching these characters spew rude dialogue amongst each other, the difference is astounding. We as the viewer, like Puss in Boots, are constantly searching for the next thing to keep us occupied or the newest product to get our hands on in our ongoing hustle culture, consumer-driven society. As a result, we fail to stop and consider what we already have, and that life is about more than just material possessions. Just like how in the film, Puss doesn't stop to smell the roses, but the doggo is able to. Sure, Puss in Boots has lived an exciting and admirable life, but it's also been a lonely one. The most important thing learned on this quest for the wishing star turns out to be love and friendship. But it's not just a film about love and friendship. It's about how it's okay to be afraid. It's a foreign emotion for Puss, but he learns how to face it, no matter the result. It's a film about finding beauty in the life you are given and not always being so worried about the next thing. And by no means is it a hidden message or theme, but it's so organically woven into the story that it's never jarring. It never feels like you're getting a lecture from the writer. I mean, nobody likes a lecture. At least I don't think I'm the only one that skips class, right? Whereas right from the opening of Velma, I feel as if I'm just getting Mindy Kaling's view of the world, told through animated Scooby-Doo cosplayers. Her messages don't feel natural. The show just serves as a vehicle for her to lecture us on how she feels. I know that Puss in Boots and Velma were both targeting different audiences, and it may be a bit of an apples to oranges argument, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on two of the most recent animation properties, and how one did it so right, and one failed so miserably. However, what matters most is what do you guys think of these two projects? If you still haven't checked out The Last Wish, I highly recommend it. Whatever your thoughts, let me know below. If you could subscribe to the channel and give the video a like, it would mean the world. You know the drill. Don't be a bystander. Peace.